My dying student told me his terrible secret 25 years later. I was shocked. Hello, dear friends. I'm Mr. Roberts. I've spent 32 years as a high school teacher, and today I need to share with you the most devastating and shocking story of my entire career. This is a story I've kept buried for 25 years, a secret so profound that it changed everything I thought I knew about my life, my students, and myself. I'm warning you now. This story will shake you to your core. It's about a troubled student, a deathbed confession, and a truth so unbelievable that I'm still processing it today. Some of you might think this is fiction, but I swear on everything I hold dear that every word is true. It was 1998, and I was teaching at Jefferson High School in Portland, Oregon. I was 35 years old then, passionate about literature and determined to reach every student who walked through my classroom door. I believed that education could save anyone, that with enough patience and dedication, I could make a difference in any young person's life. Then I met Michael Thompson. Michael was 16, a junior in my advanced English class. From the moment he walked into my classroom, I could see he was different. He had this intensity about him, piercing blue eyes, dark hair that always looked like he'd just run his hands through it, and an intelligence that practically radiated from him. But there was something else there too, something darker, anger, maybe, or pain. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The boy was brilliant. There was no question about that. His essays were sophisticated beyond his years. His insights into literature were profound, and when he chose to participate in discussions, his contributions were always thought-provoking. But that was the problem. He rarely chose to participate in anything positive. Michael was angry. Not just typical teenage angst, but deep, simmering rage that seemed to consume him from the inside. He would get into fights in the hallways, challenge other teachers aggressively, and had this way of looking at authority figures like he wanted to tear them apart. Most of the faculty had written him off as a lost cause, a troublemaker destined for failure. But I couldn't give up on him. Something about Michael reminded me of myself at that age. The intelligence trapped beneath layers of frustration and pain. I felt this overwhelming need to reach him, to understand what was driving all that anger. I started staying after school to work with him, offering extra help with his writing, trying to channel his obvious talent into something constructive. He would show up late, sit in the back of the classroom during our sessions with his arms crossed, responding to my questions with sarcasm or silence. "Why do you care?" he asked me one afternoon, his voice sharp with suspicion. "Everyone else has given up on me. What makes you think you're different?" The question hit me harder than I expected. I remember feeling this strange mixture of sadness and determination.
Because I see something in you, Michael.
"You have a gift, and I can't stand watching you waste it." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A gift? You don't know anything about me, Mr. Roberts. Trust me, you wouldn't care if you knew the truth." His words sent a chill down my spine, but I pressed on. "Try me, whatever it is. I've probably seen worse." Michael just shook his head and walked out, leaving me alone in the classroom wondering what demons this kid was battling. As the months went by, I began to notice patterns in Michael's behavior. His anger seemed to spike around certain times: Father's Day, school events where parents were invited. Anytime family was mentioned in class discussions, he would shut down completely or lash out. Sometimes both. One day we were reading To Kill a Mockingbird, discussing Atticus Finch as a father figure. The class was engaged in a lively debate about parental influence and moral guidance when I noticed Michael had gone completely silent. His face had turned pale, and his hands were clenched into fists on his desk. "Michael," I said gently, "what are your thoughts on this?" He looked up at me with such raw pain in his eyes that I actually took a step back. "Some kids don't get father figures, Mr. Roberts. Some kids get nothing but lies and broken promises. Some kids grow up wondering why they weren't worth sticking around for." The classroom fell silent, or I could see other students shifting uncomfortably, unsure how to respond to such naked emotion. I felt my heart breaking for this angry, hurt boy who was clearly carrying wounds. I couldn't even imagine. "Michael," I said softly, "would you like to talk about this after class?" He gathered his books and stood up abruptly. "There's nothing to talk about. My father is dead to me, and I'm dead to him. End of story. He walked out, leaving 25 students and one teacher sitting in stunned silence. That night I went home and told my wife Sarah about Michael. I'd been teaching for 12 years at that point, and I'd encountered difficult students before. But something about this boy was different. The pain was so deep, so consuming, that I felt personally invested in helping him heal. Maybe his father really is gone, Sarah suggested, as we sat at our kitchen table. Death, divorce, abandon, menace, any of those could explain his anger. It's more than that, I replied, staring out our window into the darkness. It's like he's carrying some terrible secret, something that's eating him alive from the inside. I had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. Winter turned to spring, and my relationship with Michael remained complicated. He continued to excel academically while struggling behaviorally. Some days he would be almost normal, while participating in class, showing glimpses of the remarkable young man he could become. Other days, the anger would overwhelm him, and he would retreat into hostile silence or explosive outbursts. I never gave up trying to reach him. I recommended books I thought might speak to his experiences, offered opportunities for him to channel his emotions through writing, and most importantly, I remained consistently present and patient, even when he pushed me away. Then came that terrible Friday in May. I was in my classroom after school, grading final essays, when Principal Martinez burst through my door. Her face was white with shock, and I could see she'd been crying. "Jim," she said, her voice shaking. "There's been an accident. Michael Thompson was in a car crash about an hour ago."
"It's bad, past."
"Really bad. He's at Portland General and..." She paused, swallowing hard. "The doctors don't think he's going to make it." The world seemed to stop spinning. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach, knocking all the air from my lungs. Michael, my brilliant, troubled, angry Michael, was dying. I drove to the hospital in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I arrived, I found his mother, Patricia Thompson, in the waiting room. She was a small woman with prematurely gray hair, and Michael's same piercing blue eyes, now red and swollen from crying. "Mrs. Thompson," I said, approaching her carefully. "I'm Jim Roberts, Michael's English teacher." She looked up at me with a mixture of gratitude and desperation. "Mr. Roberts, yes. Michael talked about you." "Cheer." The only teacher who, she broke down, unable to finish the sentence. "How is he?" I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. "He's conscious, but barely." "Hold. The doctors say his internal injuries are too severe. They've given him maybe a few hours." Fresh tears streamed down her face. "He's been asking for you. He says he needs to tell you something important." My heart clenched. In all my years of teaching, I'd never had a student on their deathbed ask for me specifically. Whatever Michael needed to say, it was significant enough that he was using his final hours to say it. The ICU was a maze of beeping machines and harsh fluorescent lights. When I finally saw Michael, I barely recognized him. This vibrant, intense young man was now pale and broken, connected to more machines than I could count. But his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, were still alert, still burning with that familiar intensity. "Mr. Roberts," he whispered. When he saw me, his voice barely audible above the mechanical sound surrounding us. "You came." "Of course I came, Michael. I'm here." I pulled a chair close to his bed, fighting back tears. "How are you feeling?" He managed a weak smile. "Arnott, like I'm dying, which I guess I am." His honesty was startling, but somehow typical of him. "I need to tell you something. Something I've wanted to say all year but couldn't." I leaned closer, my heart pounding. "I'm listening." Michael closed his eyes for a moment, gathering strength. When he opened them again, they were filled with tears. "Mr. Roberts, do you know who my real father is?" The question caught me completely off guard. "Michael, I thought you said your father was dead to you. I assumed he had left or passed away." "No," Michael whispered, his voice growing weaker. "He didn't leave. He never knew I existed. My mom, she never told him." I felt confusion washing over me. "Michael, I don't understand. What are you trying to tell me?" He reached out with his hand, and I took it gently. His grip was surprisingly strong for someone so close to death. "My father, my real father is you." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the room spinning, my vision blurring. Michael, what are you saying? That's impossible. I've never... 1981, he whispered. My mom was Patricia Williams then. You were both students at Portland State. She said you dated for a few months before you graduated and moved away. She found out she was pregnant after you were gone, but she never told you because she didn't want to ruin your life. 1981, Patricia Williams. The memories came flooding back like a dam bursting in my mind. Patricia, Patty, we called her then. Beautiful, smart, kind Patty Williams, who I dated during my senior year at Portland State. We had been serious for a while, talking about the future, making plans, but then graduation came, and I got the teaching job in Sacramento. We tried to make long-distance work for a few weeks, but eventually decided it was better to end things cleanly. I remembered how heartbroken we'd both been. I remembered promising to stay in touch, to visit. I remembered how life got in the way, how new relationships and new responsibilities gradually pushed our college romance into the realm of fond memories. But I never knew. I never had any idea that Patty was pregnant, that she had a son, that I had a son. Michael, I whispered, my voice breaking.
Are you sure? How do you know?
He smiled weakly. I've known since I was 12. I found my birth certificate in Mom's jewelry box. It had your name on it, Nias James Robert Roberts, born October 15th, 1963. I did the math, figured out when you would have been at Portland State. I even found our old college yearbook. Tears were streaming down my face now. This angry, brilliant boy who I'd been trying so hard to reach wasn't just a student. He was my son. My son who had been carrying this knowledge for 4 years, watching me teach him, wondering if I would ever figure it out. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my heart breaking for both of us. Because I was scared, Michael admitted, and angry. I spent my whole life wondering why my father didn't want me, why he never came looking for me. When I realized you were my teacher, I thought maybe it was fate giving me a chance to get to know you. But then I got angry all over again, because you still didn't know, still didn't want me. Michael, I said urgently, squeezing his hand. I would have wanted you. If I had known, everything would have been different. I would have been there for you, for your mother. I would have been the father you deserved. He closed his eyes, and for a moment I thought he had slipped away. But then he opened them again and looked directly at me. I know that now. Watching you this year, seeing how you care about your students, how you never gave up on me even when I was horrible to you. I know you would have been a good dad. We sat there in silence for a few minutes, both of us crying, both of us processing the magnitude of what had been revealed. I was looking at my son.
Son.
He was dying. The cruel irony of finally finding each other only to lose each other immediately was almost unbearable. I'm sorry, Michael whispered. I'm sorry I was so angry at you when it wasn't your fault. I'm sorry I wasted the time we had together being bitter and hostile. I'm sorry you're finding out like this. Don't apologize, I said firmly. You have nothing to be sorry for. You were hurt and confused, and you handled it the best way you knew how. I'm the one who's sorry.
Sorry I wasn't there. Sorry I missed 16 years of your life.
Sorry I can't make up for lost time. Michael's grip on my hand tightened slightly. Mr. Roberts, Dad, will you stay with me? I don't want to be alone. The word Dad broke something inside me. I climbed carefully onto the hospital bed beside him, mindful of all the tubes and wires, and held my son in my arms for the first and last time. I'm not going anywhere, I promised. I'll stay right here with you. We talked for the next 2 hours about his childhood, about his dreams, about the books we'd discussed in class. He told me about how proud he was to have me as a father, even if he'd never been able to say it out loud. I told him how proud I was of his intelligence, his strength, his resilience in the face of such difficult circumstances. As the sun was setting outside his hospital window, Michael's breathing became more labored. The machines around us began beeping more urgently, but we ignored them. Dad, he whispered, so quietly I had to lean down to hear him. Will you tell Mom I forgive her? She was just trying to protect both of us. Of course, I promised.
And Michael,
I love you. I wish I had been able to say that to you every day for the past 16 years. But I'm saying it now. I love you so much. He smiled one last time. I love you too, Dad. Those were the last words my son ever spoke. Michael died at 8:47 p.m. on May 15, 1998, with his father holding him for the first and only time. I stayed with him until the nurses finally convinced me to leave, my heart shattered into a million pieces. The funeral was small. Just Patricia, our few relatives, some classmates, and me. I sat in the back, still struggling to process everything that had happened. Patricia and I spoke briefly afterward, and she confirmed everything Michael had told me. She apologized through her tears, explaining that she had been young and scared and thought she was doing the right thing by not disrupting my life. I didn't blame her. How could I? We had both been so young, both trying to do what we thought was best. But the weight of knowing I had missed 16 years of my son's life was crushing. I took a leave of absence from teaching for the rest of that semester. I couldn't face a classroom, couldn't pretend to care about lesson plans and homework assignments when my world had been turned upside down. Sarah was incredibly supportive, helping me process the grief and shock of losing a son I'd never known I had. When I returned to Jefferson High in the fall, I was a different teacher. The experience with Michael had changed my perspective on everything. I looked at each troubled student with new eyes, wondering what pain they might be carrying, what secrets they might be hiding. I became more patient, more determined to reach the unreachable kids. For 25 years, I carried Michael's secret. I never told anyone else the truth about our relationship. Not my colleagues, not other students, not even my own children. When Sarah and I eventually had them, it felt like a sacred trust, something too precious and painful to share. Teacher Dar. Patricia and I stayed in occasional contact over the years. She would send me Christmas cards with updates about her life, and I would think about Michael, about the man he might have become. Sometimes I would drive by his grave on the anniversary of his death, leaving flowers and wondering what could have been. Last month, everything changed again. I was in my office at Jefferson High. Yes, I'm still teaching there at 60 years old, when my secretary buzzed me. Mr. Roberts, there's a woman here to see you. She says her name is Patricia Thompson. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't seen Patricia in person since Michael's funeral, 25 years earlier. What could she want after all this time? When she walked into my office, I was shocked by how much she had aged. The woman I remembered had been in her early 30s with prematurely gray hair. This woman was clearly in her late 50s, her hair completely white, her face lined with decades of grief and struggle. Hello, Jim, she said softly, sitting down across from my desk. Thank you for seeing me. Patricia, I replied, feeling that familiar mixture of sadness and guilt that always accompanied thoughts of Michael. It's good to see you. How are you doing? She smiled sadly. I'm dying, Jim. Cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. First Michael, now Patricia. It seemed impossibly cruel that I was about to lose the only other person who knew the truth about my son. I'm so sorry, I said, meaning it completely. Is there anything I can do? Anything you need? Actually, there is something, she said, reaching into her purse. I need to give you these before I go. I should have given them to you 25 years ago, but I wasn't ready then. She pulled out a manila envelope and placed it on my desk. With shaking hands, I opened it and found myself looking at photographs. Baby pictures showing a chubby infant with bright blue eyes, toddler photos of a curious little boy with dark hair exploring playgrounds and building blocks, school pictures showing gap-toothed grins and gradually maturing features, high school photos of the young man I had known, but smiling in ways I had never seen. He looked just like you, Patricia said quietly. Even as a baby, people would comment on how much he resembled his father. I could never tell them you didn't know he existed. I picked up a photo of Michael at maybe age 10, grinning widely while holding a large fish he'd apparently caught. The resemblance was unmistakable. The same nose, the same eyes, the same stubborn cowlick that had driven me crazy as a child. There are letters too, Patricia continued. Michael wrote to you constantly, letters he never intended to send. He started when he was 12, right after he found out who you were. He would write to you about his day, his thoughts, his dreams. He kept them all in a box under his bed. She pulled out a thick stack of envelopes, all addressed to Dad in Michael's distinctive handwriting. I opened the first one with trembling hands. "Dear Dad," it began. "Today I found out your name is James Roberts and you teach English at Jefferson High School. I rode my bike past the school 3 times, trying to get up the courage to come inside and find you. But I chickened out. What if you don't want a son? What if Mom was right to never tell you about me? I guess I'll just keep writing these letters instead. Love, Michael." I had to stop reading because the tears were blurring my vision. My son had been writing to me for 4 years, pouring his heart out in letters I never received, riding his bike past my school trying to work up the courage to meet me. "Patricia," I whispered, "why are you showing me these now? Why didn't you give them to me after he died?" She sighed deeply. "Because I was selfish. Because they were all I had left of him and I wasn't ready to share them with anyone, even you. But now I'm dying and I realized it's not fair to take his words with me to the grave. You deserve to know how much he loved you, how much he wanted to be your son." I spent the next 3 hours reading through Michael's letters, learning about the boy I had never known. He wrote about his struggles in school, his confusion about why he felt so angry all the time, his dreams of becoming a writer like his father. He wrote about watching me from afar, learning my schedule, sometimes timing his walks past my classroom just to catch a glimpse of me. One letter, written just weeks before he died, nearly broke my heart completely. "Dear Dad, I'm in your English class now, and it's the best and worst thing that's ever happened to me. Best because I get to see you every day, get to learn from you, get to pretend for 1 hour each day that I have a father who cares about my education. Worst because I can see what I missed out on. You're patient and kind and funny, and you actually listen to what students have to say. I wish I had the courage to tell you who I am, but I'm scared you'll be disappointed in the angry, screwed-up kid I turned out to be. Maybe it's better if you never know. At least this way you can't reject me. Love, Michael." "He loved you so much," Patricia said, watching me read. "Even when he was being difficult in class, he would come home and tell me about something you had said, or some way you had tried to help him. You were the father he had always dreamed of having." I looked up at her through my tears. "Patricia, I need you to know something. These past 25 years, not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about Michael. Haven't wished I could go back and change things. Finding out I had a son and losing him on the same day was the most devastating experience of my life." She nodded. "I know. I could see it in your eyes at the funeral. That's part of why I couldn't give you the letters then. Lubby, you were already in so much pain." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both of us processing the weight of the moment. Finally, Patricia spoke again. "There's one more thing, Jim. Michael left something for you in his final letter. He wrote it the day before the accident, like he somehow knew what was coming." She handed me an envelope that felt heavier than the others. On the front, in Michael's careful handwriting, were the words, "For my dad, James Roberts, to be opened only after my death." Inside was a single sheet of paper with just a few lines. "Dad, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And Mom finally gave you my letters. I want you to know that even though we only had 1 year together as teacher and student, it was the best year of my life. You taught me that intelligence without kindness is worthless, that patience is more powerful than anger, and that some people are worth fighting for even when they push you away. You taught me how to be a good man, even if I never got the chance to become one. I forgive Mom for not telling you about me, and I hope you can forgive her too. She was just trying to protect both of us. Take care of yourself, Dad. I love you, Michael." By the time I finished reading, both Patricia and I were sobbing. 25 years of grief and regret and love poured out of us in that small office, filling the space between us with the weight of everything we had lost. "Patricia," I said finally, "I want you to know that I forgive you. I understand why you made the choices you did. We were both so young, both trying to do the right thing." She smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Jim. That means more to me than you know." We talked for another hour about Michael, sharing memories and stories, filling in gaps in each other's understanding of the remarkable young man we had both loved. When she finally left, she hugged me tightly. "Take care of those letters," she said. They're the voice of the son you never got to raise. Patricia Thompson died 6 weeks later. I spoke at her funeral, sharing stories about Michael's intelligence and potential, about the impact he had made on my life in just one short year. I didn't reveal our true relationship. That secret died with Patricia Pin, but I made sure everyone there knew that Michael had been special, that he had mattered, that he was loved. Today, as I prepare for my own retirement after 32 years of teaching, I keep Michael's letters in my desk drawer. Sometimes when I'm struggling with a difficult student or feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of education, I pull out one of his letters and remember why I chose this profession. Michael taught me that every angry student is carrying pain we can't see. Every difficult child is fighting battles we don't understand. Every troubled teenager deserves someone who won't give up on them, someone who will see their potential even when they can't see it themselves. I never got to be Michael's father in the traditional sense, but he made me a better teacher, a better man, a better human being. In his letters, I discovered a brilliant, sensitive, loving young man who just needed someone to believe in him. I'm grateful that I was able to be that person for him, even if I didn't know the full significance of our relationship at the time. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Patricia had told me about Michael from the beginning. Would I have been a good father? Would I have been able to help him work through his anger and pain? Would he still be alive today, perhaps with children of his own? But I've learned that dwelling on what if is a path to madness. All I can do is honor Michael's memory by continuing to reach out to struggling students, by refusing to give up on the ones others have written off, by remembering that sometimes the most difficult students are the ones who need us most. Michael Thompson was my student for 1 year, and my son for his entire life, even though I only knew it for his final hours. He taught me that love doesn't require knowledge, that impact doesn't require awareness, and that the most important relationships in our lives sometimes happen in ways we never expect. I carry his secret no longer, because Patricia took it with her to the grave, but I carry his letters, his love, and his memory with me every day. And in every struggling student I encounter, I see a little bit of Michael, brilliant, angry, hurting, and deserving of someone who will wait for them to find their way. That's the gift my son gave me. The understanding that we never know whose life we're changing, whose future we're shaping, whose heart we're healing. Sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply show up, be present, and refuse to give up on someone who has given up on themselves. Michael, my son, my student, my teacher, thank you for changing my life in ways you never knew. I love you, and I'll carry your words with me always.